It's unanimous consent the call of quorum be terminated.
Without objection.
I now ask that I ask unanimous consent we proceed to executive session and consider calendar number 62.
Without objection. The clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, Department of Justice, James Michael Cole of the District of Columbia to be Deputy Attorney General.
Mr. President, I have a cloture motion at the desk, and I ask that it be reported.
The clerk will report the motion.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, hereby move to bring to a close the debate on the nomination of James Michael Cole of the District of Columbia to be Deputy Attorney General, signed by 17 senators as follows: Reed of Nevada, Leahy, Cole, Feinstein, Franken, Coons, Blumenthal, Klobuchar, Whitehouse, Brown of Ohio, Udall of Colorado, Durbin, Carper, Sanders, Rockefeller, Shaheen, Schumer.
Mr. President, I ask consent that the mandatory quorum under Rule 22 be waived.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate resume legislative session and then proceed to a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that a time be determined by the majority leader in consultation with the Republican leader, the Senate proceed to executive session to consider calendar number 61. There will be 3 hours of debate, equally divided in the usual form, that upon the use or yielding back of that time, the Senate proceed to vote without intervening action or debate on calendar number 61. The motion reconsidered be considered made and laid on the table with no intervening action or debate, that no further statements be in order to the nomination. That any statements related to the nomination be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that Senator Isaacson be added as a conferee for the FAA Reauthorization Bill H.R. 658.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Health Committee be discharged from further consideration, S.Res. 158, and the Senate now proceed to its consideration.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 158, congratulating the students, parents, teachers, and administrators of charter schools across the United States, and so forth.
Without objection, the committee is discharged.
I ask further
and
that
the Senate will proceed to the motion.
I ask further, Mr. President, the resolution be agreed to, the amendment to the preamble, which is that has to be agreed to. The preamble as amendment be agreed to. The motion to reconsider be laid on the table. There be no intervening action or debate, and that any statements relating to the measure be printed in the record at the appropriate place.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed en bloc the following resolutions which were submitted earlier today. S.Res. 166, 167, 168, and 169.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measures.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the resolutions be agreed to, the preambles be agreed to, the motion reconsidered be laid upon the table en bloc. There be no intervening action or debate, and any statements related to these matters be printed in the record at the appropriate places if read.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the appointment at the desk appear separately in the record as if made by the chair.
Without objection.
I believe there's a bill at the desk and it's due for first reading.
The clerk will report.
H.R. 3, an act to prohibit taxpayer-funded abortions and to provide for conscious protections and for other purposes.
I ask, Mr. President, for a second reading in order to place the bill on the calendar under Provisions Rule 14, but then I object to my own request.
Objection is heard. The bill will be read the second time on the next legislative day.
I now ask unanimous consent the Senate when it completes its business today, adjourn until 2 p.m. on Monday, May 9th. The following the prayer and the pledge journal proceedings be approved to date. The morning hour be deemed expired. The time for the two leaders be reserved for use later in the day. But following any leader remarks, the Senate proceed to a period of morning business for debate only until 4:30 p.m. The Senator is permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes. Following morning business, the Senate proceed to executive session to consider Executive Calendar number 62. There will be 1 hour of debate equally divided and controlled in the usual forum. Upon the use or reading back of that time, the Senate proceed to vote on the motion about cloture on the nomination.
Without objection.
Mr. President, my colleague, who is a member of the House of Representatives, Dean Heller, will on Monday at 2:00 p.m. be sworn in as a senator representing the state of Nevada. That will take place in this chamber at 2:00, as I indicated. Mr. President, the next roll call vote will be at 5:30 p.m. on Monday. That vote will be a cloture vote on the nomination of James Cole to be Deputy Attorney General. If there is no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it adjourn under the previous order.
The Senate stands adjourned until Monday at 2 p.m.
Senators have spent much of today on